Summer does not officially begin until June 21st, but I think that you will agree that summer is already here. I heard yes. Memorial Day has come and gone, and school is finally out, and the temperatures are in the 90s with always those afternoon rains. Yeah, that kind of sounds like summer to me. And that's why I'm continuing a focus today on what it means for the people of God to follow the fourth commandment. You, of course, know the fourth commandment, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, here's the fourth commandment. It begins with the word remember, so you can remember that. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And summer may be one of the rare times when we can actually listen to what may seem like nonsense for the rest of the year. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. It's by keeping this commandment that we're living into holiness, and just as important these days, we're keeping our sanity. Anybody need to keep their sanity? I do. Okay, 3 other people raised their hand. That's kind of pitiful. The rest of y'all are just lying. Or hopeless, yes. Well, I leave that between you and God. Now, some of you know that I recently spent 5 days on a retreat at Mepkin Abbey in South Carolina. And I shared a little bit of that retreat with you, but what I haven't shared with you is just how close we came to losing the director of our retreat. His name was Jonathan, a Jesuit priest who does retreats all the time. But when Jonathan came, he was absolutely strung out from too much. And the irony of having a strung out retreat leader was not lost on anybody, including Jonathan. And in his opening session with us, and we were just a small group of 12, that's kind of a biblical number, Jonathan, in his opening introduction, said, "I'm in deep doo-doo here." And we thought, what does that mean? And we didn't really know what he meant by that comment until later. So I'm going to let Jonathan say in his own words what had happened, what led up to that moment. Jonathan wrote, "Never having been to Mepkin, I arrived in distress to present a 5-day retreat animated by the poetry of Mary Oliver and Thomas Merton, mentors of contemplative living. I had experienced 3 deaths in close proximity within months. Heavy rains in New Jersey, despite the best efforts as a sump pump, forced water into my basement for a week. I suffered from insomnia. I hadn't slept for 3 days. I walked into the lobby of the St. Francis Retreat Center on Sunday afternoon, barely in my right mind. And thus the first object in the retreat center I spied upon entering was an attractive jar with a red top marked Abbey's Treats in black marking pen. I thought immediately, without second guessing, that these round pretzel objects with peanut butter centers were a Mepkin Abbey industry, especially something the Abbey made as an industry. Jonathan goes on to write, he says, "In the early hours of Monday, still unable to sleep, I wandered into the living room of the retreat center, made a cup of herbal tea, and thought to try an Abbey treat. I only took one, chewy enough to satisfy, but I ignored or barely tasted its bland flavor. Like all retreatants who come to Mepkin, I soon encountered its beautiful-faced mascot, her collar imprinted with her name, Abbey." You already know where this is going. "No matter where I went on Monday, Abbey followed me as if guarding my mind, or so it seemed. After presenting the first conference on Monday night, I congratulated myself on how well it had gone, despite still being disjointed in my deeper mind. To celebrate, I again I did something with herbal tea. And needing to refuel after expending energy on the conference, I took the jar of Abby's treats from its low shelf, and I ate at least 5 of them before I told myself I should not hog them from the other retreatants. It was then, as I returned the plastic container to its shelf, that I saw Abby lying just outside. Abby's treats. Only then did I read the attractive packaging that I had ignored before, and I realized I had been eating dog food. I don't remember having laughed so long or loud at myself in years. In fact, for our final gathering, Jonathan gave each one of us Abby treats. I thought he was going to ask for some kind of weird communion. Episcopal priest and Roman Catholic priest have been known to do strange things, but actually he said, give one to Abby and spend some time with her. We could do that. When Jonathan told us this story, we all just burst out laughing. I mean, how can you mistake dog food? But in a different set of circumstances, that could have been any one of us, if we're that stressed out. In fact, I think a lot of us have mistaken dog food for God food. We have filled our bellies with junk when God is trying to give us the bread of heaven. That bread comes in different forms. It comes in Holy Communion, for one, but it also comes in the form of holy rest. And that's what Jonathan had been missing. That's what we as retreatants were there for. Remember. There's that word again. Remember when Jesus said, the thief comes in with the sole intention of stealing and killing and destroying. But I came to bring them life, and far more life than before. So, my beloved, what is stealing and killing and destroying you right now? What is stealing your soul? It's going to vary from person to person, but my guess is that it's the overscheduled life. Now, you don't have to raise hands, because I kind of know who you are anyway. But how many of you have color-coded your family calendar so that you can keep up with everybody's activities? For how many of you is McDonald's your go-to dinner because there is not time to have supper together? For how many of you has the minivan replaced the dining room table? How many of you go to bed exhausted and you wake up more tired than before? How many of you are searching for a deeper relationship with Jesus, but it just seems like one more thing to put on your to-do list? Well, my beloved, that's where Sabbath comes in. Matthew Sleeth writes, we have enough work but too little time for God and life. Today we live in one of the most prosperous eras of human history, yet many of us never get beyond a survival mode. And unrelenting work can keep us from asking life's big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What does this all mean? Jumping off the hamster wheel once a week allows us to think about how we are, why we exist, and why we were made. Jesus and the poet Mary Oliver both ask us to do the same thing. Basically, to consider the lilies of the field. Oliver puts it this way. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. That's what I was sharing with our summering group this past week. That it's only when we cry out, stop, that we can slow down enough to hear God, to see God, and to obey God. And sometimes that only happens when we sleep, because that's the only time God can get our attention. And so God comes to us and speaks to us through our dreams. It's the only way some of us can be still enough to hear God. I find it interesting that even the young Samuel in our Old Testament story was only able to hear God when he was asleep. However, after that encounter, Samuel remained wide awake to God for the rest of his life. Your stop day, your Sabbath, your stop day can give you that wide awake life we are yearning to have. But do not mistake your stop day for the rest of your week. Your stop day is not the day you do homework. It's not necessarily the day you do groceries or clean the house or do laundry, unless these are activities that give you life. And I tell you, I love nothing more than cleaning the bathroom. That's what I love to do on my Sabbath, as God strikes me with lightning. Otherwise, these are just activities that are part of what one of my seminary professors used to call your personal maintenance day, okay? This is just the stuff we need to get done in our households. Now, I have been at the side of many, many people who are approaching the end of their life, and it's true what they say. No one on their deathbed ever said, "Gee, if only I had spent more time at the office." This is how Mary Oliver puts it in one of her poems. "When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it is over, I don't want to wonder if I have made my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited the world. I don't want to end up simply having visited the world." We're given a stop day because without it we just keep going and going and going. But you and I are not the Energizer Bunny. We're human beings who are commanded, and you heard it in the gospel today, commanded to at least once a week to stop being human doings. Do you hear that? We're not human doings, we are human beings. Jesus re-emphasized that in our gospel today. The Sabbath was made for humanity, and that's God's great gift to you. It's a gift that we are all abusing. Now you can choose whatever day you want as your stop day. It can be Sunday, it could be the Sabbath. As I've shared earlier, for me it's Friday. For you it might be Saturday. Maybe it is Sunday. Eugene Peterson, who wrote the Bible translation, The Message, says, "Sabbath is that uncluttered time and space in which we can distance ourselves for our own activities long enough to see what God is doing." That's what y'all are doing here. That's why you come to worship. You want to see what God is doing in this community and, more importantly, in your life. I think my friend Jonathan would agree. When we stop the clutter, we can see that Abby's treats are for the dog of Mepkin, and God has other treats in store for us. I'm remembering this summer, friends departed. I'm remembering Kathy Cottian today, and I'm also remembering my friend Lynn Anderson. Lynn was very fond of Psalm 46, verse 10. And Lynn was even more fond of the ancient way of breaking up that verse. This is one of those verses you should memorize. It goes, "Be still and know that I am God." I'm going to read that again to you as Lynn would have read it. But as I do, wherever you are, look out on God's creation. Look out on the greenery. We've got bluebirds in this house over here. Look out on God's creation. Claim this as your own pathway to Sabbath. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. In Jesus' name.